So my story started when I was 12 years old. I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, and my mom said, we're going to New York to go shopping. But we weren't just going shopping. We were going to the Jacob Javits Center. My mom had a store, and I was there, of course, to buy bat mitzvah favors wholesale. So aisle after aisle, I was walking around, and I looked at my mom, and I said, you can shop for a living? So sign me up. I'm 12 years old. I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, and that was to shop for a living. So fast forward a couple years, and I moved to New York. I got an apartment on 10th Avenue, and I always knew I'd have a store. I spent years accidentally consulting for a myriad of brands, mashing up marketing, merchandising, and business development. And then one day, I stumbled upon my store. And I kind of developed this idea over time. And here's the concept. Imagine this. Imagine a space that has the point of view of a magazine, reinvents itself entirely every 4 to 8 weeks like a gallery, and sells things like a store. So we're constant, because I signed a 10-year lease, but we're always changing. So how do you tell a story that's always changing? Well, you call your store a story. We partnered with an amazing designer by the name of Stefan Sagmeister and Jessica Walsh, and they together came up with this amazing identity where our logo evolves to accommodate different stories. Our first story was love story. We've done a wellness story. We've done a making things story. We've done a home for the holiday story. We've done 13 stories in less than 2 years. So what I'm here to talk about today is a concept that I call retail as media. What do I mean by that? I'll tell you. So we're familiar with what a magazine looks like, and this is the cover of InStyle's color issue. That's the cover of our color issue in our 2,000 square foot store. So magazines have editorial through pictures and articles, and then there's publishing, where they pay for everything by having advertisers. So what's our version of publishing? We have sponsors. So when we have a color story, we call up Benjamin Moore and we say, hey, come along and help us tell this story. And the truth of the matter is, they're not just writing me a check and giving me extra income. They're credentializing me as a storyteller because they know a lot more about color than Rachel Schectman does. And then what we do is we tell that story through different merchandising. So you open up a magazine, you see the Clinique ad next to the letter from the editor and some merchandise that's a little editorial snapshot. You go in our store and you see an ad on the wall from Stylement, a subscription t-shirt company in California, and adjacent to that, a myriad of other merchandise. And the entire store is painted like a spectrum of color and merchandise accordingly. One thing that's constant that ties all these stories together is content, commerce, and community. Not just because they're the sexy buzzwords of the moment, but because that's what I feel is really important to tell a story. So to tell that example, how many people in the room by a show of hands have heard of Quirky? Oh, not that many. I'm so excited. Okay. So full disclosure, I'm on their advisory board, but it's the only board I've ever asked to be on because I'm not obsessed with the company. So here's the deal. You have an idea for a product where you have that moment where you're like, I wish they made a product that did this. You go on the website, you submit your idea. If enough people like it, they make it. And guess what? You make money. So there was a guy by the name of Jake. He was bored in class one day. He uploaded the idea for a power strip that moves called the Pivot Power. This year he'll make over $1.2 million just from submitting his idea. So it's all about making invention accessible. And they're only online. So we had Quirky in our store, and we thought, okay, there's an experience that makes sense online, so how do we tell that story in real life? We took the product out of the box, we took the story of the inventor, and we made it accessible for consumers to really engage with Quirky in a way that made sense to them. And then we thought, well, how can we make that more contextual and make it content in a meaningful way? So this is a retailer's nightmare. This is a product that has 124 different variations. It's a crossover. It goes on the back of your iPhone, and you can store credit cards and stuff. So we took the most popular color combinations and made it a table, and then we videotaped the making of that table, and then that went back online. So we went from online, offline, online, 360 degrees of content. And lastly, where my passion is community. So Quirky is all about community. And so it's one of those things, right? There's nothing that drives me more crazy than going into a store, and they're like, here's our interactive experience, and it's a computer screen. And so our opinion is if you're going to have an interactive experience in a physical place, let it be something that you can't get anywhere else. So for Quirky, instead of having a computer, we had live illustrators there sketching people's ideas live, and then they got scanned, and they went in the same system that everyone else's ideas did at their home. So community takes many different forms. How many people in the room are familiar with beta, right? A website's in beta, it's a test phase, they're working out kinks. So here's the deal. If we're the same people who give companies permission to work out kinks online, why can't we do that in real life? So that's what we did. We opened in beta. I called ourselves a startup store, and we just sold merchandise from startups. And I had 4 weeks to work out the kinks and figure out what it was like owning a store, because I had never done that before, and that's what we did. And then we started building community. These are 40 New York CEOs and founders of tech startups who came together to share their ideas and talk in a real physical community, no different than what's online, but just in a more intimate, personal way. This was our New York story. We started doing a lot of events. So events are kind of part of our editorial storytelling. This was a mixology class. One of my favorites was Nona, an Italian grandma from Staten Island, came and taught everyone how to make fresh pasta. And then what we do is, because you can only reach so many people, is we find online partners who can amplify and deliver the impressions that we would want both for ourselves and our partners, like Skillshare. We have a very high profit lemonade stand, 25-cent lemonade, for our mini neighbors and customers to come in the summer and practice their own entrepreneurialism. And this is something that was amazing to me, right? So I saw the logo, it's great, it's versatile, but when you stand in the brackets, you're the story. This is a couple we've never met before in our lives, and they came into the store to have their wedding picture taken. I feel like I need the little asterisks, like airbrushing. This photo hasn't been retouched to make kids happier than they really appear. But, some days my staff wants to kill me because it's like romper room, but we have, events for people of all ages. So we borrow from our friends in the magazine world different things that help us be better storytellers. I always say we know a little about a lot of things. And so we like finding people who know a lot about very specific things. And these were contributors we had for our wellness story, for our Home for the Holidays story. This was our letter from the editor that was signed by the guest designer. And it was a gift guide that came to life. So the space totally transforms. So we had a high-tech navigation system in the form of lampshades. Then we had subcategories, like for the mixologist, with a gift guide in every room of a home. This was one of my favorites. So we'll take content online and bring it offline to tell stories. So I hope the whole cougar thing is still in vogue when I'm old enough to be one. This was during our love story in our partnership with Nerve.com. We integrated dating profiles in the boudoir and really try and find different ways to tell stories. So here's the deal, right? There's all these new business models for the past 20 years that have given birth on the internet, and yet in retail, it's sales per square foot, which to me is archaic. So we look at what we do as experience per square foot. So with our Making Things story, we partnered with General Electric, and we had 3D printers, and we had laser cutters, and we had injection molding machines. 75% of our store was pure experience. You could come in, you could take a workshop, you could play with different machines. We had his story recently this summer. It was a bunch of stuff for guys. We partnered with a small company called Procter & Gamble, Details Magazine. And what's his story without hot towel shaves? So you could come in and you could get a hot towel shave in the afternoon. We also have a bunch of different technology partners, because I think technology is important, you just have to use it in the right way. This is Perch Interactive, it's a projection technology, and it's a way to get people to interact with your brand and your product in a dynamic way. The secret inside story is I got shipped too many samples from P&G and I didn't know what to do with them, so I put them in the table, cut a hole out, and made it sampling, and guess what happened? I got an email, because one day a lot of people came and they were digging for samples. So I won't read the whole thing, but the interesting part about this email is this person was telling me how they were waiting in the store for 20 minutes while their friend tried to dig out a razor. And in his email to me, he said Gillette razor. So he got the message that Gillette was in the store without it being in your face. And this is what it looked like. There was a crowd getting a $12.99 razor that you could get 3 blocks away at CVS. So that's what I mean by experience per square foot. This is an email we got from someone in Dallas, Texas, who flew to New York for 24 hours to hear Chip Connolly give a book reading at our store. And so, you know, it's a little, if you build it, they will come, but you just have to think differently about how you build it and where you build it. So like a magazine has audience and demographics, we have a very narrow audience. Men, women, and kids, ages 6 to 80. So what does a kid care about an injection molding machine or a laser cutter? I call this was the internal name, so don't worry, pimp your pumpkin. And they got to come, and we laser cut Mr. Potato Head pieces, and you got to make a pumpkin. And then how do you get the ladies excited about this stuff? We'll just get Rebecca Minkoff, who's a very well-known handbag designer, to come and laser etch a one-of-a-kind handbag. And guys, you're kind of easy. So we had lots of workshops around injection molding and using tools to make different things. So metrics. How can we tell what we're doing is working? We're used to seeing stuff like this online. So this is what happens in our store, behind the scenes. So we have a relationship with a company by the name of Prism Skylabs. And so our entire store has cameras all around. And what it's actually doing isn't just recording movement in the store, but what you'll start to see is that color will appear, and it's heat mapping. So this is living A/B testing. So we can see how people are moving and walking in the space and where they're spending time. And story to story, we can move fixtures or move product and play with it to see, is it the consumer and how they're moving in the space, or is it the merchandise? Is it hot, or is it not product? What you can also use this technology for is research and development. So it's not a cookie cutter, here's your full page ad, have a nice day, but we activate on whatever the deliverables are for our client. So this is a partner that was testing a brand that hasn't even come on the market yet, and they wanted to do R&D. So we took all their brand attributes, and then we sampled the product, and we recorded everything, and we had that during our wellness story. So one thing that I got to thinking about when I saw certain things resonate and this kind of amazing community bubble up was all these things that were working and resonating were things that work online. It's community, it's a discovery platform. We're used to going on Etsy to find makers and see how they make things, so we had people make things in the store. We're used to going on Kickstarter to discover and fund and support new designers. And this is the other thing that's kind of come out of my passion for this community, and it's Pitch Night. And Pitch Night is something that we started a little over a year ago. And what it is designers email us in the same way that you pitch a magazine to write an article on your company, people pitch us to sell their product. So we said, okay, we'll have a couple people come, let's see if anyone shows up. So 6 to 8 o'clock was what it was. We were there till 11 at night. We bring in other retailers and other members of the media so that we're not just giving access to one store on 10th Avenue and 19th, but we're giving people opportunities to go elsewhere. This is Beth Macri. Her day job was as a structural engineer. She pitched these necklaces. You're probably thinking, what's so special? That's what's so special. There's a hidden message on the bottom of each of them. Then a little unknown woman by the name of Whoopi Goldberg bought one, put her on the show. She quit her day job, and she's doing this full time. So the discovery that is really important to us takes many forms. This was a competition we did to have our windows designed for GE. An architect in Austin, Texas won the competition. The challenge was you had to use the materials and the machines in the store to create a store window. Theirs was shadow puppet, so the window moved when you moved in front of it. And then also what we did is we gave students an opportunity to design our store for Art Story. And what was great about this is it was a graduating class from Pratt, and many of them didn't have jobs. That's not the good news. But the good news is that this became their living resume. It wasn't just stuff on paper. It's that for 6 weeks, you could actually go and see what they did. And I will say, as a caveat, of all the designers and architects and people we've worked with, they were on time and on budget, and so I will take students any day of the week. So we're in the middle, we're just wrapping up our Made in America story. It's the first story that we've extended beyond our time. It's something that struck a personal chord with me. It's a road trip across the country. We have over 100 brands made in America and amazing partners. I always say, you know, what do yoga classes and temporary tattoos and all these things have in common? and it's that they have a story, and that it's not about just being business-minded or just being creative, but having content and commerce and community unite. And people always ask, well, this all sounds nice, but like, can you actually make money doing this? Well, we were profitable in our first year of business. So this is normally the part where I just end and I say, you don't know what the next story is, because we're like a magazine, so I hope you visit us and find out. But the one thing I do want to say to kind of bookend where we started is we started talking about deals. And I really feel strongly and differently about this. And so my challenge to all of you is this, is that, you know, the guy who invents a product on Quirky, when his product's on sale, then that inventor doesn't get money. Or the designer who wants to quit her day job to make a product, or Shinola who's creating jobs in Detroit for making watches. So I challenge us to stay home after, you know, Thanksgiving. And there's this amazing thing called Small Business Saturday and Shop Small, which is about supporting small makers and small businesses. And that's what I'm passionate about. Thank you.